Welcome to the Victory Podcast.
Hey, Victors. Welcome to this episode of the Victory Show. If this is the first time you're joining us, I'm Travis Cody, best-selling author of 16 books and the creator of Bestseller by Design. I've had the privilege of helping hundreds of business owners, founders, and consultants write and publish their own best-selling book. And along that journey, I've discovered a really fascinating pattern. A lot of businesses hit a revenue plateau, usually around $1 million a year, and they struggle to break through that. So on this show, I sit down with some of the world's most successful founders, CEOs, leaders to uncover the strategies that they use to overcome those plateaus and scale their businesses to new heights so you can do the same. So get ready for some deep insights and actionable takeaways that you can implement in your life and business starting now. My guest today is a trailblazer at the intersection of technology, human connection, and the future of work. Lynn is the founder and CEO of Pivot, a groundbreaking platform designed to reduce turnover and improve the social well-being of relocated mobile and remote employees and their families. In a world where mobility means disconnection, Lynn is pioneering ways to help people find authentic belonging wherever life and work may take them. Her mission to revolutionize how companies support their global workforce has earned her major recognition, including the Forbes 30 Under 30 honors in 2022, being named to the Forbes Next 1000 list in 2021. Now, beyond Pivot, Lynn serves on the board of trustees at Franklin and Marshall College and the nonprofit Only 7 Seconds, which is dedicated to tackling youth loneliness. Her journey includes formative roles at Bloomberg LP in London and Autonomy Ventures, and today she's an active mentor and advisor through Women in Business at Yeshiva University, Astia Angels, and London and Partners. She's also a sought-after speaker, and she shared insights on stages from South by Southwest to Harvard and has been featured in top publications like Forbes, Digital Trends, and the London Evening Standard. So if you care about leadership, innovation, and the power of community in today's mobile-first world, I think you are going to appreciate our conversation. Lynn, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. You are tackling something that has not really been addressed, at least from my perspective, which is everybody talks about, oh, it's amazing, digital nomads, remote work, and at the same time, loneliness and anxiety are at all-time highs. In a world that is more connected than we've ever been, loneliness is. So let's talk about that a little bit first, and then we'll get into why you created Pivot and Go. What are some of your insights into the loneliness epidemic?
Yeah, it's at, as you said, an all-time high. And it's being exacerbated as you go down in generations. So Gen Z is reported at a much higher rate than millennials and so forth. And so it's becoming, an increasing problem and something that we're now finding greatly affects your health. Greatly as an indicator of your lifespan. And then, as it relates to organization, it greatly affects retention, productivity. So it is, an epidemic. It's something that the former Surgeon General declared as something, one of the biggest health threats of our time. And so it's something that, I think is top of mind for a lot of different people and are starting to really understand how do we tackle this in a holistic way, because it really has to be a systematic way at firing at all fronts.
Well, and you bring up a good point, which from a corporate perspective, how many corporations have ever really stopped to consider that when they relocate somebody, it could take somebody from a really great social situation and put them in a situation where they feel alone and drifting. Because I think in the business world, usually the idea is, right, hey, we're relocating you because you're getting a promotion and you're going to make more money, and there's this excitement around it, but nobody's addressing this downside. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's really staggering. For years and years, the statistic, I couldn't believe it. So the average company will spend $90,000 domestically, $300,000 relocating a single employee. And yet, yeah, it's mind-boggling. Closer to $1 million if it's an executive. And a third of those people will quit their job within a year or move back home because of their and their family's inability to socially acclimate.
Wow.
And when we dove into it, a lot of it came down to the fact that that majority of the cost is getting put into the logistics. So moving you and your things from A to B, getting you there, set up, potentially helping you find a home, things of that nature. But after a couple of weeks, the companies will typically say, okay, good luck. you're on your own. And
Welcome to the new town and the new team.
exactly. And hit the ground. We're expecting you to hit the ground running and being productive from day one. And there's so much nuance domestically, let alone internationally, that goes with relocating somewhere new, adjusting to new culture, both within the workplace and wherever you're going to. Sometimes language differences, family adjustments that equate to sometimes 70%, I think of was the most recent study of relocations will actually fail because the family has difficulty acclimating, not the employee. And so I would say, up until Pivot came along, a lot of the focus was really around the logistics and not on, well, what happens next? How do we make sure that we protect that investment so that when we spend all that money, they're actually staying and they're productive? And what that does in turn is, these people are taking life-changing opportunities in unfamiliar places and growing, in ways that I was able to grow. And so it's been a really difficult and challenging opportunity to bring something very new to an industry and change their perspectives on why it's so important. But I think we've been able to get over that hump and really help people in a meaningful way.
Wow, that's fantastic. I helped somebody last year. I say somebody. She was a CEO, a C-suite executive, and she was working on a book and she was sharing the statistics with Fortune 500 companies when they promote somebody to a C-suite position. The average for that person to remain in that position is 16 months.
Wow.
Across all Fortune 500 companies. And part of the reason is they were not getting the support that they needed. They were basically Fortune 500 company has a problem. This guy can solve the problem. They hire the person, like fix the problem. But the same thing, as soon as you're on payroll, they're like, good luck, come back to us with the problem. And they're like, I don't know what to do, right? So it's interesting because you've got all these multiple layers. You've got the actual C-suite guys dealing with this problem, and then you've got the employees underneath it. Now you're throwing in the family. So how much of this was like, did you experience having to move to London, or did this happen to you? Did you kind of get put into a culture where you were like, what the heck is going on right now?
I did. So I had, first of all, no intention of ever starting a company. I took one business class in college, and that was it. And went to a school without a math requirement. So this was never supposed to be in the cards for me. But I got a life-changing opportunity to move to London to work for Bloomberg 3 weeks after graduating from college.
Wow, yeah,
So
that's exciting.
it was great. And I was 21 years old, didn't know anyone. I had been to London for 2 days when I was 12 years old with my grandparents. And so had 3 weeks to kind of figure out, how do I start making this new place feel like home? Where do I live? Which bank do I join? How do I recreate my network from scratch? What are some of the things, the answers to the questions I don't know to ask? And so ended up living in Notting Hill solely based on the fact that I had seen the movie. Said, okay, good enough for Hugh Grant and Julia Roberts. Let's give it a shot.
I love
But I didn't know
it.
anything. I didn't know where to look and saw that it was a direct train line to, or tube line to where I worked. And just really struggled with, like, I know that this is a life-changing opportunity that I have in my hands. How do I make the most of it? Like, what am I doing wrong here? Because this seems a lot harder than it needs to be. And I spoke to other colleagues of mine at Bloomberg London, which is the international hub. So there's most of my colleagues are expats, and quickly realized it was much bigger than just myself.
Everybody was going through it, regardless of which culture they came from.
Exactly. Or like no one had an answer as to this was really helpful or it was really a black hole. And so started doing research, just again, still no intention of starting a company, just how do I make the most of my time in London? And started to dive in deeper and formulate a solution.
Wow. So when did the idea then for coming up with an app start to kind of percolate in your mind?
So the idea occurred about 11 years ago. In the process of doing research, and I started this originally with my brother, we spoke to a lot of people, and it became pretty prevalent that an app would be the best mechanism from the standpoint of people that we were targeting were on the move. The phone is something that you can have in the palm of your hands if you're on the street somewhere and are struggling with something and need a recommendation or so the app became pretty clear pretty quickly that that was the mechanism we were going to go after.
Like once you started thinking about it, like how long did it take before you then were in a position to go, okay, I've got to really start moving on this and start putting this into reality?
Yeah, so I spent about 3 years doing research on that while I was in London. And then after 3 years, we said, okay, let's give this a go. So I moved back to New York. We
Wow.
were
So did
building
you leave
out.
Bloomberg or did you transfer to a new office?
I left Bloomberg. I
Wow.
actually would have stayed at Bloomberg if they would have, if my job would transfer to New York, but it was going to be in New Jersey. So I left Bloomberg.
Not New Jersey. No.
I would have, but yeah, it wasn't quite right for the timing.
So you
Um,
took the big leap, as they call it.
took the big leap, but again, while we were building out our beta, wasn't at the point where I could take it full time. So I said
Sure.
to myself, what can I do if I have to work? What can I do where I can learn something that is going to benefit what Pivot is going to become long term? And so I actually joined a venture capital firm with the intention of learning the other side of things to understand what makes a company investable and valuable. Did that, worked for two managing partners. So did everything from, get them coffee in the morning to making decisions on deal flow and helping our portfolio companies grow.
Wow.
Learned a lot in that period of time. And then actually Pivot launched as a consumer app for
Hmm.
people moving and traveling to help acclimate in their new city. And we were live for about 8 months when we were approached by HSBC. And they said, we came across your platform. We like
Wow.
what you're doing. This is something we're struggling with internally with our relocated employees and business travelers. Can you build this for businesses? And we went back to
Wow.
the drawing board and we said, we built a good product for a lot of people. We had backpackers, abroad
So
students,
you
travelers.
were consumer facing digital nomad peeps.
Exactly, exactly. Had so many different types of people for different purposes. And so we built a good product for a lot of people. We didn't build a great product for one. And it was a free app. And so in order for us to scale and get revenue, it would require a whole lot more marketing money. And so this was a serendipitous opportunity where we could get paid to really focus on a demographic. So at that point, actually, my brother lost interest, went to another company, which he co in the sports world. And as I mentioned to you, then COVID hit. And so we said, okay, we think companies are going to pay for it. We came across the statistic that I told you with the retention issue, but had to go learn a whole different industry. And
Hmm.
how do we refactor our app to fit a B2B model?
So did HSBC come to you and say, "Hey, can we pay you to build this for us internally?" Or did they say, "If you've ever got something for business, come back to us and we'd be interested"?
It was the latter.
So then interesting, like, on the one hand, I can see COVID kind of putting the brakes on this because you're dealing with people relocating. And at the same time, you have all these people that relocated that now are stuck. They like
Right.
can't go, that they, even if they want to go home, they can't.
Yep.
Right. So now
Yep.
you've got this interesting thing. Okay. But so I used to work in Hollywood, so my brain is always kind of that way. But I just saw the new movie, the new Marvel movie, The Thunderbolts. And what's interesting about that movie is the main villain, they're doing medical tests to try to recreate the super soldier. It's been forever in Marvel's universe, but they end up they're just taking anybody off the street to see what'll happen. And one of the guys, they don't mention this, but I would guess on his statements, he's bipolar. So he's the only one that survives. And so you have this guy that is basically Superman, and yet mentally he's not very strong and he just feels super, super lonely. And when he gets lonely, like it's called the void, this darkness comes inside of him. And the darkness is just like, we're all alone and we're always going to be alone and it's never going to. So I just remember watching this movie. And so the whole port of it is the heroes have to go into his subconscious and find him and be like, but you're not alone. It's okay. And I just thought that was such a telling, an appropriate villain, super villain for today's younger generation. I say, younger, 35
Yeah.
and under, because and I thought, how appropriate is it to hear somebody who's basically invincible, but because he believes he's alone, like he loses all of his powers. So let's talk a little bit about then, like, I find it appropriate, right? You're in business and you create an app that's called Pivot, but then that also pivots your career because now you're stepping into founder, leader, dealing with this. So walk me through the first couple of years of and let's basically go from 2020 to 2022. What were the challenges in the business that you had, and what was growth like for you during those couple of years? We'll do in 2 years gap, 2022 and then 2022 to now.
2022. Perfect. 2020 was around the time where we decided to go into this B2B to C world. And
Perfect timing.
perfect timing. Everything's about timing. So, was doing a lot of research around what does it look like to sell into these enterprises? Who is the right person at the corporations? Turns out there's relocation management companies that 80% of
What?
the large corporations
What?
outsource to handle all the
I
logistics.
would
So
have thought HR. That was all an HR thing.
They outsource it. And so what's their role? Do you sell into them? Where does that all factor in? All the while, had not fundraised more than a friends and family round for a consumer app. So how do we build out, get letters of intent and clients to then go out and fundraise so it can be more than me. And so it was a lot of learning those first couple of years. And then of course COVID hit and people weren't moving. But I would say the blessing of it was that people were not traveling to go to conferences and had a little bit more time on their hands. And so I was able to get in front of more people, learn a lot faster. And what we were pushing from a knowledge standpoint was how important social well-being is for retention and productivity and the company. And nothing could have spoke higher to that than everyone across the world really starting to feel that sense of social isolation. And so everyone all of a sudden could really resonate with what relocated employees, in some capacity feel when they relocate. And a lot of companies were then rolling out wellness initiatives and, hiring well-being officers. And so we did get a little bit of tailwind in terms of understanding the purpose and the importance of the solution that we were trying to bring across the board and the ROI back to the business.
So that first couple of years, you were wearing all the hats. You were the marketing and the customer service and the sales and the project management.
Everything but building out the tech.
Yeah, the developer doing that. But you were still the brains behind what it looked like. All right. COVID finally lets up. 2021 starts things rolling. We're rolling into 2022. So what does that 2022 to 2024 look like in terms of growth? So it's interesting, right? It feels like bad timing because of the fact the world shuts down, but at the same time, that allowed you to probably have a little deeper research than you might have been able to have just because people were not running as fast, right?
Absolutely. And so we were then able to launch a pilot with a client in 2021. We did it only in Dallas, Texas, and we did it with a relocation management company. And we learned a lot, mainly that companies don't want to just give a benefit to people in Dallas. They want to give it to their whole employee population. And so we said, okay.
So everybody in Dallas is talking about it, and the rest of the company's like, hey, I want this.
Yep, exactly.
Well,
And
that's
so
a good way to roll out.
Yeah, so we had to shift our product a good amount because we were very location based. And a lot of the value was around, building communities in which other relocated and mobile employees could connect with each other and share their experience. And so we, altered it to involve a lot more resources and content that could help you regardless of where you are. So first of all, city guides, which we did at scale. We did a lot of personalized content on the journey and some of the ups and downs that you might feel. We did wellness check-ins, things of that nature. So regardless of where you were, we could provide a good amount of value. So we were able to do that throughout the US and Canada. And, that worked well. However, are we getting to now?
Yep.
Is that part of this? Okay.
It's like, we're in 2024-ish.
Okay, 2024-ish. So then about, 7 or 8 months ago, we had this idea of rolling, to kind of taking this personalization to the next level. And so we developed a relocation buddy system in which we will actually pair you within your own company to someone that has relocated in the last year or two. And then based on an algorithm and what is important to you, which you rank, we will connect you based on things like, same hometown, same language, family structure, goals and interests, gender, if that's important to you. And we will connect you to this person that, prior to moving can answer your questions, can understand, can give you a lot of, some of the cultural nuances ahead of time, can have your back. And when you arrive, can meet you for coffee and just serve as that person.
It's so it's funny because I'm listening to you going, my God, what a brilliant idea. And it's so common sense at the same time. You're like, why has no one thought about this before?
Right. And and it's been great because it's allowed us to scale anywhere in the world. So we're in very remote areas in Canada and Asia because you just need that one person that has your back. And so, that it has precipitated a lot of growth on our end.
Wow. It's remarkable. Yeah, my brain is just spinning right now. There's so many things I'm like, wow, why didn't do that? Why do that? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about your challenges, especially this just last year, because you've gone, obviously you've had to transition from wearing all the hats to now you've got you're responsible for hiring, you're building a small team, and it sounds like you're in that pivot now of stepping away from being founder more into CEO land. So how are you, what are some of the challenges for you personally that you're coming into that now that you're in the middle of the evolution, and how are you addressing those again on a personal side?
Yeah, so, we're really in scale mode now. And so it's a very different position than we were a year ago. And so I think like my role is ever changing, and we're about to, go out for a funding round and with the purpose of scaling our team even further. And so, a lot of the things that you were mentioning of going from a founder of wearing a lot of hats is now transitioning to how do we build a team at scale that can take on the challenges that are, ahead of us, that can deliver the product and the service that our clients and our users expect of us. More importantly, maintains a strong culture where our employees feel like they can be their best selves and really contribute to our mission in the best way. And so, I think I briefly mentioned before we jumped on, I was actively looking for an executive coach because one of the things I know is that there's a lot that I don't know. And I know that where we're going is not where we were, and that it's going to require a very different type of leader. And so I want to make sure that I can show up as that leader to support our team in that way. Some of the things that I do know that are going to be hyper important are, being very, very clear on our mission. As you grow the team, that becomes ever more important and a lot more challenging. So being very clear about where we are, where we're going, why that is, I think is going to be very important. We recently did an exercise with our team talking about what they love about our organization and what they would really like to improve. And that was really insightful because first of all, we can make improvements, but on the aspects that they love, we saw a pattern.
Hmm.
And so we want to make sure that that's something that we scale with the number of people that we bring on, is that we maintain those aspects that people love about our company. So those are some of the things that I'm thinking about, but I know that there's a lot around the corner that I'm
Sure.
not aware of and I don't know.
Well, but you're tackling one of the biggest, I think, overlooked aspects, again, just from the conversations I've had with successful business owners. I think I've talked to 4 or 5 venture capital guys now. When one of the things I asked them is what has been the struggles when you invest in companies with founders, and that they said that there was two things. The one thing is the founder not letting go because they like it's their baby, right? And the other side, the ego of like I know everything I need to know. And they said a lot of times they would pull funding out of their companies because of like, no, like I can't do that. So the fact that you're already like, all right, there's a lot of stuff I don't know. Let me get somebody a little further ahead of me. Like so when I was in Hollywood, when you were in a writer's room, that was one of the things we talk about is that the only way that you can actually get better as a writer is you need to have somebody who's better than you reviewing your work
Right.
because they can see things that you can't. Right. And that's the only way you can get better. And it's the same way in business. When I was on the Pivot website, you've obviously got, aspects for the businesses and also aspects for individuals. So let's talk about that. So someone's listening to this episode, they're reading this chapter in the book. What, from business perspective, what are the like ideal fit for businesses that would use Pivot?
So, Pivot as it is right now is a 12-month plus subscription, typically given to the employee the moment they find out they're relocating, and then stays with them throughout their post. So,
Mm.
it's paid for by the employer to the employee. We actually give free access to the partner spouse as well. And that's been a huge aspect to, I think, the retention that we've been able to cultivate of the individuals we serve. So, and you get access to the app, extensive resources, as I said, city guides, wellness check-ins, our vast community of other relocated and mobile employees, and then of course, your designated buddy that has your back. So it's a lot that is entailed and carried with you, and hopefully a support system that has your back way beyond the traditional time and spend has given individuals. And what's interesting is that we have been approached by some of our clients saying, this buddy program is fantastic for relocation. Can you also potentially help us with onboarding and mentorship and things of
Wow.
that nature? And so our goal and where we are looking to grow into is more of a platform that can help people, live and thrive anywhere, wherever they choose to live and work. And so helping people create that sense of belonging then translates into personal growth, translates into better productivity and greater retention.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. So from the individual side, if there's do you guys still service the digital nomad community, or is it primarily now just working with people in corporations or relocating?
Yeah, right now through corporations.
Got it.
So
So
there is an
somebody's
individual and, your corporation, ping your corporation, typically HR, head of benefits, global mobility are the people that we work with.
So what's the next 3 to 5 years look like for you guys?
Growth. So I would say over the next year, we launched fully international starting in January. Really being able to stand up anywhere and provide value anywhere. We're really working to cultivate the tech and take that to a next level so that the buddy system is even more easy and automated. We're also building out a dashboard so that the employers can understand retention trends and how their talent is doing, how their buddies are contributing to that success, some of the metrics that are really important to bring back to the business to understand how they can enhance relocation and talent in the future, but also be very hyper aware of where their decisions are leading to, which will be really great. And then, as I mentioned, the next step is really to go into the head of HR, the head of onboarding, and really support companies at scale, not just with their relocated employees, but with anyone going through a transition.
I love it. So somebody's listening to this episode, two aspects. They think this is great. How do they find Pivot?
You can go to our website at www.pivotapp.com. That's pivot without an O.
So PIVT app.com.
app.com.
Okay.
Exactly.
Somebody's listening and they're like, "You're amazing. I want to bring you into our company and speak to our HR." How do they connect with you personally?
They can reach out to me at Lynn, Lynn, at pivotapp.com, or can find me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn seems to be the flavor of choice. Well, Lynn, this is fantastic. What a great idea. Love what you're doing. Go check out Thunderbolts.
I definitely will.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to come chat with us.
Thank you so much for having me.